Woo, 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 woo. What's up, chat? How we doing today? Hope you guys are having a fabulous, fantastic day. Um, it was such a wonderful, beautiful sunny day in Seattle. It got to about 86 degrees. So your boy definitely got a little tan, which is nice. But being out in the sun kind of wears you down for a little bit. So kind of tired right now, but we're pushing through. Let's get straight into it. Number 5. After the accusations against Sandusky were made public, one of his chest defenders was a former second mile participant named Alan Myers. When the Pennsylvania police were investigating former second mile kids in an attempt to corroborate the allegations against Sandusky, they contacted Myers and he was adamant. Myers said that he does not believe the allegations that have been made and that the accuser is only out to get some money, the police report read. Myers continues to be in touch with Sandusky 1 to 2 times a week by telephone. Myers told the police that he had showered in the locker room with Sandusky many times after workouts and nothing untoward had ever happened. 2 months later, Myers went home. Myers went further. He walked into the offices of Sandusky's attorney and made a stunning revelation. After reading the details of McCrory's story, he realized that he had been the boy in the shower that night. Curtis Everhart, an investigator for Sandusky's lawyer, wrote a synopsis of his interview with Myers. It is worth quoting at length. I asked a specific question. Did Jerry ever touch you in a manner that you felt to be improper or cause you to feel concerned about his invading your personal space? Myers answered with a very pronounced never ever did anything like that ever occur. Myers stated, never in my life while with Jerry did I ever feel uncomfortable or violated. I think of Jerry as the father I never had. Myers stated on senior night as a West Branch high school football game, I asked Jerry to walk into the field with my mother. It was announced on the loudspeaker, Father Jerry Sandusky, along with my mother's name. I invited Jerry and Dottie to my wedding. Why would I ask Jerry, my father figure, at senior night, ask Jerry and Dottie to be at my wedding, and the school asked me to ask Jerry to speak at my graduation, which he did if there was a problem. Why would I travel to games to go to his house and make all the trips if Jerry had assaulted me? If that had happened, I would want to be as far away from him as possible. Myers described the night in question clearly. Myers stated he and Jerry had just finished a workout and went to the shower area to shower and leave. I would usually work out 1 or 2 days a week, but this particular night is very clear in my mind. We were in the shower and Jerry and I were slapping towels at each other, trying to sting each other. I would slap the walls and would slide on the shower floor, which I am sure you could have heard from the wooden locker area. While we were engaged in fun, as I described, I heard the sound of a wooden locker door closed and a sound I have heard before. I never saw who closed the locker. The grand jury report says Coach McCrory said he observed Jerry and I engaged in sexual activity. This is not the truth, and McCrory is not telling the truth. Nothing occurred that night in the shower. A few weeks later, however, Myers signed up with a lawyer who represented a number of alleged Sandusky victims. Myers then made a statement to police in which he completely changed his tone. He was one of Sandusky's victims. He now said, "You can be forgiven if you find this confusing. The boy in the shower was the most important witness in the whole case. Prosecutors had been searching high and low for him because he would be the final nail in Sandusky's coffin. So finally he surfaces, denies anything happened, then almost immediately flips, says actually something did happen. So did Myers become the key prosecution witness in the Sandusky trial? That would make sense. He was the most important piece in the whole puzzle. No. The prosecution left him at home because they had no confidence in his story. The only time Myers ever appeared in court was to testify at Sandusky's appeal. Sandusky had asked for him to testify in the vain hope that Myers would revert to his original position and say that nothing happened in the shower. Myers did not. Instead, as Sandusky's lawyers read back to Myers each of the statements he had made less than a year before about Sandusky's innocence, Myers sat there stone-faced and shrugged at everything, including a picture of him standing happily next to Sandusky. Who are the people in the photo? He was asked. Myers, that's myself and your client. Defense, and when was that picture taken, if you know? Myers, that I do not remember. It was a picture of Myers and Sandusky at Myers' wedding. In all, he said he didn't recall 34 times. Then there was Brett Swisher Holtz, a second-mile child with whom Sandusky had been very close. He was probably the most devastating witness in Sandusky's trial. Holtz told of being repeatedly assaulted and abused, of dozens of lurid sexual encounters with Sandusky during his teenage years, in showers and saunas and hotel rooms. Prosecution. Mr. Holtz, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury approximately how many times the defendant in either the East Area locker room or the Lash building shower put his penis in your mouth? It would have to be 40 times at least. Did you want him to do it? No. On any of those occasions? No. Then Sandusky's wife, Dante, was called to the stand. She was asked when she and her husband last saw Brent Holtz. D. Sandusky, I think it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I'm not sure. The stories Holtz told of his abuse was alleged to have happened in the 1990s. Dante Sandusky was saying that 2 decades after being brutally and repeatedly victimized, Holtz decided to drop by for a visit. Can you tell us about that? Yeah, Jerry got a phone call. It was Brett. He said, I want to come over. I want to bring my girlfriend and my baby for you to see. The baby was like 2 years old and they came over. My friend Elian Steinbacher was there. And we went and got Kentucky Fried Chicken and had dinner. And it was a very pleasant visit. This is a much more perplexing example than Tria Gonzaga in the Nassar case. Gonzar never denied that something happened in her session with Nazar. She chose to interpret his actions as benign for entirely understandable reasons up until the point when she listened to the testimony of her fellow gymnasts at Nazar's trial. Sandusky, by contrast, wasn't practicing some ambiguous medical procedure. He's supposed to have engaged in repeated acts of sexual violence, and his alleged victims didn't misinterpret what he was doing to them. They acted as if nothing had ever happened. They didn't confide in their friends. They didn't write anguish accounts in their journals. They dropped by years later to show off their babies to the man who raped them. They invited their therapist to their weddings. One victim showed with Sandusky and called himself the luckiest boy in the world. Another boy emerged with a story after months of prodding by a therapist that couldn't conceive a grand jury. Sexual abuse cases are complicated, wrapped in layers of shame and denial and clouded memories. And a few high-profile cases were as complicated as Jerry Sandusky. Now think about what the complication means for those who must make sense of all that swirling contradiction. There were always doubts about Sandusky, but how do you get to enough doubts when the victims are happily eating Kentucky Fried Chicken with their abuser? That last bit really made me think of what agenda do people have, or the strangers, what agendas do they really have in the back of their mind? What are they trying to achieve? Whether that be money, whether that be trying to get over somebody, whether that trying to get back at somebody. It's a very interesting idea. But another thought is like, you know, especially I feel like in this world we live in now, it's like, how much evidence do you really need to make a judgment on how a person should be punished for their actions, right? And I mean that from example of when you first hear the first bit of the story where, you know, McQuarrie saw Sandusky with a kid and touching him and, you know, having these sexual sounds, you're like, man, that guy should go to jail. But the more the story goes out and more details are explained, you're like, whoa, hold on, is that true? If that is true, then that kind of moves things around. But then there's also the idea that more people and more allegations are coming about Sandusky and how he was treating young boys and how this is not the first time. So it's like, well, at what point do you stop and say, hey, this is enough, we have to still make actions? Yeah, that's very interesting. But I'm gonna end off the night there. I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.